So I didn't really know because there's so much of my life. My life is kind of like I've got a lot of things going on. And so I guess I wanted to start off by saying to the students that I take an approach to my own life as being a creative. And creativity comes in a lot of different forms. And I think that it's really important that if you consider yourself an artist, and that if you want to be an artist throughout your lifetime, you need to take an approach where your life, everything that you do in your life, you implement some form of creativity. I think that it makes for a more interesting path in life, and it really gives you various opportunities that you would never expect to happen. So beyond that, I'm not sure where to start. There's a lot of things that I do right now. Mainly, I'm a professor at the New York City College of Technology. All of the students are in Brooklyn, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. I mean, I don't know if you guys have passed by it, but it's at Jay and Tillery at the J Street stop in downtown Brooklyn. When you get a chance, you should definitely come by. We've got a brand new facility. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we're not there that much these days or at all.
It looks really pretty from the outside. It's so fancy now.
Absolutely. We've been we're being very cautious. So except for programs like nursing, where they have to do labs, we are we're teaching remotely. And it looks like we're probably going to be doing this until the fall of 2022, which is a ways off.
So I do like to when I have my guests, since my students are in high school, I do actually ask my guests to kind of backtrack and start where you were in high school and how did you become interested in pursuing art.
Okay, so starting in high school and moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, because one of your questions is how old were you when you first started making art?
Exactly.
So I remember in grade 2, I had done a painting of Clifford the dog.
Oh my
Clifford
God.
the dog is still a thing, right?
He is still a thing. That's adorable.
And I entered it in an art contest and I came in second place.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Do you still have the drawing?
Probably somewhere in my mom's house. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think I've thrown away anything. So I will not be surprised if I come upon it at some point.
And where did you grow up? So where were you?
So I grew up in Toronto. I was born in Toronto. And I grew up mostly in the suburbs of Toronto, although nowadays Toronto is really expanding. So where I grew up is now considered Toronto proper. But at the time it was kind of farmland when I moved there.
Oh, wow.
Or when I lived there. Yeah. And so in elementary school, so I went to Catholic school, like growing up. I went to Catholic elementary school, and then I went to an all-boys Catholic high school with a uniform, and then I went to university. So the Catholic high school that I went to, there was no art program.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. There was a music program, so I played the trumpet, and growing up, I played the piano. So I didn't make art all through high school.
Wow, that's like huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my best friend in high school, my best friend he's a friend in elementary school and became my best friend in high school. And he was always like, you need to make art, you need to pursue art, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I got to be responsible. My parents want me to become a doctor. So then I went to university, and I considered being a doctor, and I did terrible in calculus. So I was just like, okay, I don't want to be a doctor.
But were you making art in high school, like on your own time outside, even though you didn't have an art class? Like, did you have a sketchbook or?
Surprisingly, no. It was like I had just, yeah, not done it that much. I mean, our family was pretty, like my aunt was an artist and my mom did various things artistically. Like she did Chinese brush painting and she did paintings on silk scarves and like all this other stuff. So I would play around with those materials. Um, I was always interested in sculpture, but didn't have a clue about where to even begin that process. And since there wasn't anything around me, there was like a big chunk of my life, like in high school, where I wasn't making any art. And then I actually went to university and I studied psychology for 4 years while I was considering being a psychologist. And I was working as a researcher in a psychiatric hospital. And I was like, this is not really the path I want to go down. And so while that was happening, I started to make art. So yeah, so I didn't start making art again until I guess I must have been in my early 20s, something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And I threw together a portfolio and I applied for art school. There's only a handful of art schools, like proper art and design schools in Canada. One of which is now it's called OCADU, which is in Toronto. When I was going there, it was called OCA, but it's comparable to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago.
Okay.
So if I don't know how familiar you guys are. Yeah.
We don't really talk about that school too much. When we do talk about, official art schools, it's really more local, right? Because we have so many here in New York.
Right.
That part.
I live in Chicago.
Sorry?
What'd you say, Melody?
No, it's Ali. I used to live in Chicago.
Oh, so you know the school, right? I think it's still probably the best school in the United States in terms of ranking for programs. And
the Art Institute of Chicago is? I never knew that.
Yeah. For both art and design. I mean, depends on what program you're in. But typically, yeah, I know that when I was applying for art schools, it was, and for graduate school. So jumping ahead, I threw a portfolio together. I didn't tell my parents. They were still hoping that I was going to be like a professional psychologist. And I was working at a psychiatric hospital as well. So I threw this portfolio together and I secretly applied to art school and I got in.
So cool.
So
art portfolio, we need to know. What was in your art portfolio? Like what kind of art was it?
I did oil paintings, I did drawings, I did this technique of layering. I would do these paper paintings they were kind of three-dimensional. So they were cutouts of different things, like, so there'd be figures and landscape and trees, but they were all on different layers and they were different colors and
like a 3D collage sort of.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Very
and
cool.
Oh, actually that's true. I did one of those in high school for an English assignment. So I was making, that's right. I was making art on my own through high school. I just remembering. So then I went to art school, and so art school was very traditional Bauhaus. I don't know how familiar the students are with Bauhaus approach to art, but
probably not. I've never discussed it. Does anybody know what that means? Bauhaus?
No, I mean, so there's foundation art. I mean, kind of how you're studying, I'm sure you're studying it right now. So there's color theory. There were 2 drawing classes. It was 3 drawing classes. There was a 2-dimensional design course, a 3-dimensional design course. That was in first year. So the first year was foundation. Everybody takes all of the same courses, and then the second year you select your major. And I had actually gone into art school thinking I wanted to become a graphic designer. And then I fell in love with sculpture or three-dimensional. I fell in love with the three-dimensional assignments. And so I applied to the industrial design program. Do you guys know what what industrial design is?
Why don't you, someone guess? Take a guess. One of my students.
Sounds like we're building sculptures or designing them.
Say that again, Daniel.
Sounds like you're designing sculptures.
Sounds like
It's-
designing sculptures. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, like, what in your life would you consider sculptural?
Something hands-on that's not on a piece of paper.
Right. So basically, everything around you would be like everything that you buy, everything that is mass produced, which is three-dimensional, would be designed by an industrial designer. So,
Oh,
yeah,
exactly right.
exactly. So spoons, chairs, lamps, everything that you would find at Walmart, that would be designed by industrial designer. Absolutely. Stoves, like everything that is three-dimensional and mass produced and you would buy in a store, that is industrial design. So I applied for the industrial design program and I got in. And I was a little, so they were asking us to, design things like garden tools. And so I would like think outside the box and create these kind of wacky garden tools that didn't look like garden tools, but behaved like garden tools. And my professors hated them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And and I was like, why am I going to school to design things that they wanted to see, like we were designing like tape dispensers and they wanted it to look like a tape dispenser. And I was like, this is not interesting.
you were too creative. You were too.
I was too creative. Yeah, exactly. So then I went into sculpture. So after doing a year of industrial design, I moved and did sculpture. And so I studied sculpture. So I actually took an extra year of school because I felt like I wanted the full sculpture experience. And so I fell in, as soon as I moved into sculpture, I totally fell in love. I just
Was it normally a 4-year and you spent 5?
exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. And at the time, the school, you weren't getting a typical degree out of it. Like you weren't having to do math and science and all that kind of stuff. It was just all art and design. And so I just buried myself in art and design, mostly art programs. So I did woodworking, I did metal fabrication, I did plastics, I did mold making, I did like life sculptures, like doing figures. I did metal casting, so casting in bronze. I did ceramics. I really just wanted to learn all of the different materials and the methods and ways to make stuff. And so that's what I spent like on the next 3 years doing. And then I had always dreamed about coming down to the United States and going to grad school. So I applied to this school called the Cranbrook Academy of Art. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
I'm familiar with it. It's Michigan, is that right?
It's in Michigan. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just outside of it's in the suburbs of Detroit. So went to school there. It's probably the most amazing program you can imagine for graduate art school. Did somebody have a question?
So where you live at?
Jonathan wants to know, where do you currently live? Is that what you said, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Currently live? Currently, I live in Harlem. So I live, do you know where the Studio Museum is? The Studio Museum of Harlem? I live 2 blocks down from there. And the Apollo is like 2 blocks up and over. So it's, I live in Central Harlem, basically. I live in a townhouse here.
Jonathan, do you want to turn your camera on for a moment? Or if anyone is able to, that would be nice. You don't have to, of course. But I appreciate that some of you have your
Yeah,
cameras.
you're correct. I don't have to.
No.
Okay.
When you see art in the world, what do you do?
When I see art in the world, I look at it and I absorb it. It depends on what kind. I mean, I consider everything in the world artistic, and I really enjoy. You know, I see art and design similarly. I feel like design is just an extension of art. I think that as a professional, especially nowadays, it's easier to be a designer than it is to be an artist, just because there's actual jobs that will pay to be a designer, which is why I say you need to take a creative approach to your life and just see an opportunity and look at everything with a creative eye, and that will keep you interested in life and keep you going, and you can see opportunities, or you can find opportunities where you wouldn't expect them to be. One of the funny things is, so I moved to New York to be an artist from Detroit. Everybody from school moved to New York to be an artist. Hadn't, you know, I mean, I knew about New York. It was never a big dream of mine to be in New York, but after I came here, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But I also realized how challenging and expensive it is to live here. So I worked in the art world for a year and a half, almost 2 years. I ran an art installation company that was in the East Village. We would move art around the city, and we would install art in museums and in people's homes. So we would pick up artwork from artist studios or from art galleries, and then deliver them to museums or to collectors' homes and install them. So some of the famous people that I picked up from, I didn't actually pick it up, I was running the business, but P. Diddy was one of our clients, and Meryl Streep was one of our clients. Philip Johnson was one of our clients.
What was the name of the company you were working with?
It was called Fred Warden Trucking, and it still exists.
So like fine art transport.
Right. And they had been around since the 80s. So in the 1980s, all the galleries were in the East Village. So, and this was an artist-run company. So it was artists who were driving the trucks. What had happened was I just moved to New York, and I found this job, and I was driving a truck up 2nd Avenue, and I was like, holy crap. I mean, these trucks, like, you can't see out the back, you can only see out the side. And it was like rush hour on 2nd Avenue. And I'm like,
did you ever have any accidents with the trucks?
No, well, I only drove for a week or so, and then I was like, I can't do this, but you need an office manager because this thing is a total disaster.
So you suggested that you work in the office. You're like, I'm off the street, I'm off the beat.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about crashing into people and the stress of all that. And then, like, you'd have to park the truck on the street, and then pull the work into somebody's home or whatever, and then you'd come out and there'd be a ticket, right? Because you're double parking on the street, and so you're just like constantly getting tickets. So you know, I decided at that point that pursuing art as a full-time career had to be put on the back burner. Like the same thing, if you want to be an actor or a dancer or a singer, you first have to pay your bills. And so what I decided that I was going to do was be a graphic designer because that was the one thing that I thought was easiest to do.
Mhm.
And so I worked as a graphic.
Question, what you were studying sculpture and the materials in undergrad. When you went to Cranbrook?
Cranbrook, right?
What did you do there?
I studied sculpture.
Oh, you did again.
Yeah. So Cranbrook is a really, and you guys should, if you're thinking about graduate school, Cranbrook just recently implemented or are offering a free tuition full scholarship for like I think one person in each there's 9 departments or 10 departments now because they just started a new one. They didn't have those scholarships when I went there, but you guys would be eligible for these scholarships and you could go and have this wonderful experience there.
So they're offering a free scholarship for each one of their departments. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah. Cranbrook is only a graduate school.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a beautiful campus. There's only 150 students. Everybody lives on campus. I think they're actually even having in-person classes right now because it's such a small insular campus.
Right.
To control for COVID. And you live and breathe art and design. So every program has 15 students.
Wow.
And there's just this one street where people live on and all the studios are on, and the studios are open 24 hours a day. So if you like to work at night, then people are there working at night. If you like to work during so you're just like completely immersed in art and design for 2 years.
Wow.
And that's all you do. You just make art and talk about art and talk about design. And
Have any of the students in your communication design department at City Tech, have any of them gone directly into graduate school?
they are starting to. We're starting to introduce that. There's a program called Branding and Integrative Marketing. Is that what it's called? At City College here in Harlem. So that's part of so they've been starting to go there.
What's the name of that program?
Branding and Integrative Marketing.
Okay.
And it's a 2-year program. So people are starting to
Follow
go
up with you on that. Look into that again.
Yeah.
Does any of my students have any questions? Feel free.
When you came to New York, did you feel like a struggling artist? Because I'm a trained professional dancer, and I had to have several jobs. Also, try to pursue a career as a dancer.
Right. Oh yes, definitely. I mean, I think New York is always it's always a struggle. Even when you feel like you're successful, you feel like you're struggling. Which is why I feel, that whole saying, I mean, you guys grew up here, so I'm sure it's a totally different perspective than people who moved to New York. But that saying about if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, I think is completely true. There's lots of people who move to New York who cannot deal with the intensity and the struggle of being here. Like you have to really want to be in New York in order to be in New York. And I've been in New York now since 1998. So 22 years, 1997, 22, 23 years. So I kind of consider myself a New Yorker at this point. Do you want me to give you a quick tour of my studio?
That would be great.
Okay, cool. So
studio right now?
What did you say, Andre?
I was just asking if he was in the studio right now.
Yeah. Let me just hang on a second. I need to, because I'm going to be moving my computer. I need to make sure that the volume, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because I've moved you onto my laptop. Okay. Can you still see? Yeah, you can still see me. So I live in a townhouse in Harlem. excuse me, me and my partner found this burnt out crack house, former crack house. And when we got it, it was like 4 brick walls. And there were no floors because they got rid of all of the crack dealers and the crack addicts out of it. And so we basically built a new house inside of an old house.
What year did you acquire the building or the townhouse?
2010. So right after the crash.
Okay, the market
Yeah.
crash. So you've been here for 10 years.
Yeah. So that was kind of the way we were able to afford it, was because the market had kind of dipped.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So so this was originally supposed to be kind of an installation space. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a printer there that I got from.
Enormous printer.
Yes, that's part of my current art process. So I've been doing hand lettering. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, wow.
So I've been teaching myself how to do, so it's kind of like an extension of graphic design. It's hand lettering. I've been teaching myself different typefaces. Excuse me, I've got to move the light.
Oh my gosh, Dan, this is so super cool.
So there's hand lettering of different typefaces. And then I've been doing, so this is what I do. So I do photography and painting and hand lettering on canvas. So this is canvas.
Hang on one second. You know what? The volume is getting a little bit low.
Okay. Is that
Yeah,
better?
I think if you can oh yeah, that's a really great view. Wow. So you were saying, yeah, so continue. Sorry.
So it's kind of like collage, but I do, or painting or poster design, but it's more artworky. So I combine painting and print photography and hand lettering, and I create paintings.
And did you say that's on canvas or paper?
This is on canvas. So I gesso the canvas.
Okay.
And I had to first figure out the process, because running canvas through there wasn't working on using acrylic paints, so I had to use tempera paints. So I bought all of these acrylic paints, and then I figured out that the inks weren't binding to the paint, to the paintings. So I had to.
So are you, let me understand. So are you putting, I guess which part of it is done by hand and which part of it is printed?
So with this one, just the dude is printed. Everything else is.
Everything else is done by hand.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll find another one that is. So like this is an example of just the lettering. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's like just the lettering process on a painting.
And that's on canvas and done with tempera.
Right. Let me show you some others. Here's another one. Like I like to use really bright paints, because that's one of the things that you can't get with 4-color inkjet. So I like to, right now, experimenting with fluorescent paints.
Wow.
Here's another one. So yeah, so these are all done on canvas. So I start off by gessoing the canvas and then doing the painting on top.
Those are beautiful, Dan.
Thanks. Let me take you. So this is a painting I did years ago.
Is that a diptych?
Right?
Is it a diptych? Are those two panels?
Yes, yes, it's a diptych, and I was playing around with gold leaf. So that's gold. And I started off with like painting the blue, and then I masked out the shapes and then painted white everywhere and then peeled off the mask. And then I put the gold leaf on top of it.
Oh, I see.
This one's more sculptural. So I did a snail, and that's in plastic. I cast it in plastic. I don't know if you can see there's antennae on them.
I do see. He is so cute. And what is his trail? What is the trail made of? I can see that it's gold, but what is
gold? Yeah,
is it gold leaf?
the gold leaf, yeah.
Wow, those are beautiful.
And so that's like my sculpture period. I mean, that's when this is when I first met, and this is when I was still doing kind of sculpture. These are blueberries.
I noticed those blueberries when we first started talking.
Yeah, I wanted to do some relief that you can hang on the wall. And so I would look at blueberries and I'd like, oh, those are really beautiful. And
What are those made of?
It's plaster. So my process when I sculpt is I model in clay, and then I do rubber and plaster molds, and then I'll cast in fiberglass and epoxy resin or plaster, or if you wanted to do a bronze, you would cast in wax and then you would send it to a foundry. Now I'll show you my dirty studio.
I'm guessing that you've gone blueberry picking when you were out in Michigan, or at least I'm hoping you did.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Didn't?
No, I didn't know you could.
Gosh, one of the greatest things about the state of Michigan are all of the fruit farms. And I used to go with my family blueberry picking every summer out there, and you tie these coffee cans around your waist, these big coffee cans, and you go through the fields and you pick the blueberries and you just put them into the coffee can that's tied on your waist, and they're so delicious, and you have to go back and do that.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. So this is my studio. This is, wow, it is really dirty right now.
That's okay.
This is the wet, dirty studio.
Okay.
So there's a sink there.
Oh, so this is all like your sculpture materials, your sculpture tools.
Right, exactly. So this is like and stuff. And this is my dry, dirty studio.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I don't know if you can see. So this is my dry, dirty studio.
So many tools.
Yeah, I've got lots of tools. Like if you see over here, that's a table saw. Can you see it in the middle of the room? That's a table saw that folds up.
Oh, wow.
This is where I do, that's a gessoed canvas on the floor. And then this is where I do my hand lettering. So I built this little easel, and then I tape, so I hand letter on this. I have my lettering exemplars over there.
Wow.
And then I just have like tons and tons of I'll just like turn on the radio and listen to the news, and I will start to do lettering.
Wow. They're so beautiful.
I don't know if you can see that.
I can see it. I wish I could see it in person. I wish we could. One day we're going to have to do a real studio visit. I love the two colors there. So do you give, when you design a new typeface, do you name it?
No, I mean, typically I look through different manuals, and then I try, like, here's a typeface manual that I found at the college from back in the day when we did production. And I just go through these, or I'll go online and print examples of typefaces. And then you line the paper, and then I'll just look at the typeface, and then listen to the news and start to try to figure out how to paint these. The lettering is called one stroke sign lettering. So you basically do it in like you have to get the method down, because it's really just a single brush stroke for each of the lines.
Wow. So this is making me think of the type of art making that your aunt did.
Right, exactly, with the Chinese brush painting.
Right, right.
And my mom, who would do painting on silk scarves, like, you can't screw it up. You have to know exactly what you want to paint before you put the brush down. Otherwise, you ruin the scarf. So,
have you at any point studied traditional Chinese brush painting?
just short classes. There was this thing that they nicknamed the Love Boat. Taiwan would invite foreign-born Chinese people over to visit Taiwan for 6 weeks. So I took a course then. And when I went to Chinese language school, they would have like a few classes in brush painting. And then because my mom was doing it, she taught me like the tradition. Like, there's a certain way you do like bamboo, and there's a certain way you do an orchid. And it's also like how they write their script, their hand script.
I've actually tried to teach it.
Oh, it's tough.
It's really tough. I worked at a school a few years ago that taught Mandarin starting in kindergarten. So we had many Chinese teachers there, and we did these lessons together. And at the time, I don't know if you saw at the Metropolitan a few years ago, there was a really nice exhibit on Chinese brush painting. And we took the kids there. Anyway, yeah, so I tried to teach that method of painting bamboo one segment at a time and holding the brush in a particular way. And it's really what's so cool is that it's kind of complicated for the most simple shapes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so with the lettering, I learned to do that. The Cooper Union regularly every year they have a type conference, and associated with that are a number of workshops. So there's this sign painter called John Downer, and he'll do like a 4-day workshop teaching you how to do very traditional sign painting. So I learned, I took that course, and I can send you videos. Actually, there's videos of him online, and I took some, and they're just like really fantastic. If you're wanting to learn about typography.
Well, thank you for showing us that work. I love how the combination of the contemporary, the digital printed, and then the hand painted on top. It's a really nice combination.
Thanks.
And so, do you sell your work? What do you do with your finished pieces?
Well, I mean, I've never been one to exhibit, but I feel like I need to exhibit. But I don't feel like I'm ready yet. But I mean, if people want to buy, I make art because I love making art. And that's one of the things that I realized about my life, is that my art is my own. I don't necessarily make it for other people. If people happen to enjoy it, that's great. But for me, it's the love of making art. But then there's the design side of my life, and with design, it's about making your clients happy and doing what you're basically the vessel or the tool to realize your client's vision. And so to be a professional designer, the goal is that you do what you kind of do what the client hopes or envisions in their own head, but don't have the skills to do.
Can you speak to us a little bit about your design side, about how you work professionally, I guess maybe designer and teacher, because you do both?
Right. So
many hats.
Yeah. So as I said, I moved into doing design when I realized that I needed to have a job. And so, whoa, sorry. That's, sorry.
That's music to paint by.
I'm a bit of an Ariana fan.
No shame in that.
Yeah, so I ended up getting into medical communications and pharmaceutical marketing because of my science background. And so I would design journals and design textbooks and design posters. In pharmaceuticals, I would also design like kits where people would get like drug samples and information and an introduction, those kind of things. I did educational programs for doctors. So doctors regularly have to go and get recertified and update their skills and such. And so one of the companies that I worked at was an education company. And so I would design logos and invitations and then all of the educational materials that the doctors would receive when they went to these like 4-day conferences. So I did everything from books to journals to products to websites.
Did you work as a freelance or were you on staff as a designer?
I did both. So my first job, I was on staff, and then that company went out of business. And so, but then some of the people that I was working with moved to another company. They didn't initially hire me because they didn't have the job. But I worked freelance for them and a bunch of other people for maybe a year or so. And then they said, we want to hire you. So then I worked on the company. And then me and my partner at one point both got laid off. It was 2000 and it was a .com bust. So everybody in technology was losing their jobs. And so that's when we started our own company. He's a computer programmer and I'm a designer. So we did this design and technology. It's mostly websites and that sort of stuff. So I've gone back and forth. I've been both a business owner and a freelancer and an employee. And when I started teaching, I actually wasn't looking for a teaching job. I went to an art opening and I was standing there and he was like, oh, is this your art? And I said, no, I'm an artist, but this is not my work. And he's like, oh, I'm an architect, but I also teach. And I was like, oh, okay, what do you teach? And he's like, I teach graphic design. And I said, oh, I do graphic design. So he invited me to visit his class. And then he kept on like asking me to consider teaching. And I was like, oh, I'm pretty busy. And then I decided I was going to teach one class as an adjunct. Mm-hmm. And then they interviewed me for a tenure track position. So
have you only taught at City Tech? Is that where you've been?
Yes.
And how long have you been teaching with?
It's now been 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how does making art as an art teacher compare to the other professions, designing and so?
Sorry, say that again. How does?
Yeah. My question was convoluted, but so students that are considering careers in the arts, right? How does working as an art teacher compare to working as a professional designer, freelancer?
Oh, I actually prefer it. I mean, the issue with working as an employee in a design company is great. Working as a freelancer is a hustle. Like you're always like anticipating when your next job is coming or who your next client is going to be. Being a business owner is kind of a hustle as well. Like as you're growing, you get more clients, but then then you get employees, but then you have to worry about having enough work for your employees. So it's a lot of responsibility being a business owner. Being a teacher is good because there's like one main focus, and your focus is to teach the kids or teach the students. So in some ways, I feel like it's a really nice, calm scenario, where the focus is really clear, and there's always going to be students. Creativity. I don't get to be as creative as I work as a designer, but I think one thing that people need to understand is that even as a designer, if you're a good designer, you're not designing for very long. You actually move up and become an art director, and then you start to manage designers and manage accounts, and you would have, as an art director, you would have a vision of what the designers are producing, but you would likely not be doing the design work yourself. And then as you move up beyond that, you become creative director, and then you're managing a bunch of art directors. And so you really don't have a lot of actual creative input. So you end up kind of doing what I'm doing, which is you have your job, and then you make your own creative work on your own time.
So what's your, before we're going to have to end in a couple of minutes. So what's your, so since you're teaching, obviously, college students,
Right.
at ATECH, so what's your advice to my students are high school, yours are as they finish with your program?
Mm-hmm.
What's your advice for graduating college students that are actually starting to pursue a career in the arts?
I would say, specifically with the arts, I think you need to be honest about what you like. Keep your goals in focus, and say, this is where I want to be. Envision yourself and where you want to be and what you want to be doing, and just aim for that. It may happen really quickly, or it may take a little time to get there, but you need to have a vision, or try and think about having a vision of where you want to go, and then just focus on getting there and enjoy the process of getting there. Because if you don't enjoy that process, then, because things are always going to change. That's one thing that's really different from when our parents were working. They would find a job and they'd be able to stay with that one job for their entire career. That's not the way that the world works anymore. And so, because things are constantly changing. So my advice to your students and my students and to my colleagues is, you have to be constantly looking and investigating and learning new things, because things are always changing. I know that you guys the students can't remember when there wasn't smartphones, probably, or maybe you can remember when there wasn't smartphones, but like there was a lot of our lives where there weren't smartphones. There was a lot of our lives where there wasn't even the internet. Nowadays you can't even imagine there not being an internet.
Good morning, Albert.
Good morning. So that's my advice. Just, figure out what you want to do and enjoy getting there. And just know that even when you get there, things are going to constantly be changing. So stay light on your feed, always investigate and look for new opportunities and new things to do, and to better yourself, and find creative outlets.
That's amazing advice. Thank you so much. Do any of my students, anyone have any questions whatsoever? Even not my students. I've got Miss Marcia and Mr. Fogel. You guys are welcome, of course, to chime in with anything.
With that apartment, I noticed that, how many floors are you on? Because you have a whole gallery, like where you're at, you have like one whole space where all your art is, and then it's like, it seems like you have a whole separate, it's beautiful. I was like, wow.
Okay. Yeah. We have four stories.
Okay.
and a roof in a backyard. But surprisingly, it was the same price as a downtown 1-bedroom apartment. I mean, we did it. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to do. It took like a year and a half to build. I mean, we didn't build, a contractor built it. And it was broken into a bunch of times when we were under construction, and lots of stories. But yeah, I mean, we've been able to luckily have a lot of space, and
You bought when the market, you said when the market was low and it was in poor condition. So sometimes you probably got a good deal.
yeah. I mean, it was like there was a 6-month window where it was possible, and if it was all about time. I mean, we kind of dreamed about doing it for a while, but never really could afford it. And then the market crashed, and then there was like 6 months to make it happen. And
How did the market crash?
Oh, that's a good question, Albert.
what was the question?
How did the market crash?
How did the market crash? Was that how or why?
Yeah. How? The market crashed because the banks were being overly. They were giving out loans to people who couldn't necessarily afford them. They were doing it for investment purposes, and then they were bundling up the loans and selling them. And then so it's called like a financial bubble, and then the bubble burst, and then everything kind of fell apart. So
I also lost my job when during that crash in 2008. I was a freelance graphic designer,
right.
and my primary client let go of all the freelancers. So yeah.
What was that called?
What was it called?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a call.
The recession? It's called a recession? You mean that? Or what called?
Yeah.
How long did the bank crash?
How long did the market crash? Well, the recession lasted several years. The market crashed, I believe it was 2008.
Right. And then Obama came in and cleaned everything up.
Yeah, that's when everybody started putting their money in the banks.
Right.
And then they were robbing the people's money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Obama's term, he spent most of his term cleaning up that mess and then getting the economy back on track. And really, I think smart people would say that the reason why the economy has been so good during Donald Trump's era is because Obama built an economy that was really strong.
Yeah.
Obama's a super smart guy.
We love Obama here.
Obama.
This is the Obama fan club. At least in my mind.
But so, I mean, like things like recessions and market crashes and that kind of thing, those will happen. And those, you kind of have to, save when you can, plan when you can, enjoy when you can, but also just be light and be ready for change. That's
Like right now, for example, we are certainly in the midst of very strange, changing times.
right, absolutely. I think that actually right now, especially we'll figure this out in the spring, is that right now is a really great time to innovate. It's a really great time to invent new ideas and products and services and businesses. So, because we're not going to go back to completely the way it was before. There's going to be a lot of working remotely and a lot of going to school remotely. So
I forget the name of the man who said this, but I recently heard the quote, "Never let a good crisis go to waste."
yes, absolutely.
And I've had that kind of like tacked to my, visual board for a while. And I've been trying to be very, very as productive as I possibly can during this time. So
Right.
But it is a great period for innovation, not just in education, but across the board. Because like you said, everything's definitely changing, whether we like it or not.
Well, it's funny because the idea of like not having to go to school every day was always a dream that we always, wouldn't it be great if we don't have to go to school every day and you can just stay home and stay in bed, and now it's here and it's like, oh, it's actually not that much fun.
I know. Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so very much
Sure.
for your time and letting us peek into your world.
Yeah, and if you have any questions regarding if you guys are looking to go to City Tech or go to study communication design or graphic design in college, definitely reach out to me. You guys are probably going to be when do the application process start for college? Is it now or in the spring?
Yeah, it's happening now. Everybody's in progress. My seniors are in progress.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you guys have any questions, definitely send me an email. We can jump on a Zoom and I can answer any questions that you guys have about college.
Yeah.
Why is Daniel sleeping on Zoom? I can see he's sleeping.
Yes, Albert, you are correct. Daniel has been sleeping on Zoom with his camera on.
Daniel, get up.
I've been kind of ignoring it.
Well, I'm actually agreeing with him. Yeah, I see.
Wake up, Daniel.
Because
Daniel, wake up.
my choices were to, remove him from the Zoom call, but I didn't want to do that in case he woke up and started paying attention.
Daniel, never wake up.
Let's ground Daniel for sleeping during class.
Yes.
I'm showing the picture. I'm gonna show him the picture on Monday.
Yeah, take that picture and show it on Monday. I bet you would do that.
Yep, right there. That's him.
So you took a picture of him?
Yeah, you did? That's
We did.
crazy.
Is there anyone else that's willing to turn their camera on just to say a quick thanks to Mr. Wong?
Thanks,
man.
Thank
you,
Wong.
here.
Thank you, Wong.
Andre, what happened to you? Why you have a band-aid on?
Albert, why are you minding my own business?
Oh,
You. Okay?
hi, Albert.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
Why are you saying hi to him and not me?
I didn't even know Albert was in this class.
She put all her.
Albert get a hi, but nobody else gets a hi. Let's really talk about
Hi, Ollie. I did say hi. You say I look homeless.
Are we like best friends or something?
Yeah, that
Yes. You call me homeless though.
Okay, well, thank
You're
you
right.
everyone for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Yo,
You too.
me, man.
Have a
Hi.
Hey, Melody.
Hi, Andre. Hello.
Thank you.
Wait,
Melody.
Bye.